thank you everyone for coming by today. We are right in the midst of this whole PTS process. The PTS, as much as it pains me to say it, isn't for your enjoyment. It's not. It's for us to test a lot of things, and that's why it's been really, really good. So we're honing in on that. A lot of the systems that require a lot of tuning, balance, loot, and gear, and the whole in-game experience, especially in the context of world tiers. We're kind of honing in on that experience. And I know I saw people in chat before saying, we've seen the patch notes, and it's like, oh, they're listening. Yeah, this whole process, yes, we're listening, but also we're testing. So we get the chance to look at what's actually happening through the data that we get, but also mix it with that whole community conversation. So good job.
So there was something with the time to kill, and especially the time to be killed, that seemed kind of off with week 2. It was already here in week 1, but somehow it was not noticeable as much. But it became very noticeable with week 2. So a lot of people are putting patch notes now.
Yeah, there you go.
So basically what we did to address that is we decreased the damage of level 31 to 33 NPCs by 15%.
Yeah, to get things back in line with that.
To get things back in line with, again, the 1 to 30 experience and everything. So what that means is that all the NPCs starting from world tier 2 and above are going to deal 15% less damage to you. So time to be killed is going to be much better, and it's going to feel better. So you're not going to be as fragile as you were before. So that should help. Another thing that we did with time to kill, because we were not completely happy. We're pretty happy with where we stand now with normal and veteran NPCs. It's pretty good. But with elites, we felt like it was still a bit too much. It was still a bit too long, especially when you have heavies, because they're really, they're still kind of bullet spongy. So what we did is we decreased the armor of the elite NPCs by 17%. So they will have less armor. So all the elites, not just the heavies, but all the elite NPCs will have 17% less armor, which means your time to kill elite NPCs is going to be faster. And then another change that we did regarding NPCs that is going to be noticeable is we basically change the threat mechanic. So
that's gonna be interesting to try out.
We tweaked, or it's more than tweaked, but we made a lot of changes to the threat mechanic. So basically what we did is we cannot change the threat mechanic so you can have a better understanding of how threat works and a better control over threat. So we changed the way NPCs react to threat generation, and we also changed the approach to threat with a lot of skills, which means that now you will clearly have skills that generate threat, skills that reduce threat. That was one of the
smart cover especially is one of the
smart cover, for example, mobile cover also. Pulse is also going to have one mod that actually reduces threat. So the idea is that we want you to have more control over it. So obviously the guy who's standing there with a ballistic shield shooting with his gun should be generating much more threat than other guys. So
especially if you have your friends in smart cover, which is really cool. I'm looking forward to trying that out.
So we have a bunch of changes there regarding that. The end result should be that, yes, you should have much more control, better control over threat generation, which means that tanking should be and aggro management should be a proper mechanic in a group. So that's gonna be interesting to see what you guys think about it. So test it and let us know. Search and destroy and high value targets. So we changed the search and destroy. There was something with search and destroy where a lot of the enemies were actually elites, which is kind of wrong, because search and destroy is not really meant to be something challenging. It's meant to be like an activity you can just farm, so you can farm your intels, and then the HVTs are meant to be a bit harder.
Sure.
And we had a lot of elites in the search and destroy, so what we did is we basically removed them, or most of them. So now it's going to be mostly just normal and veteran NPCs when you're doing search and destroy.
Nice.
So search and destroys are going to be much easier and therefore much faster to farm as well.
Keep in mind that when you also hand in the search and destroy thing back at the board, you get a reward. Yesterday I was playing on the PTS and I got a 229 weapon, 229 ACR just from handing in my search and destroy. So total viable open world farming option now, which is really cool.
And also in terms of intel, by the way, that's not a week 3 change. I think it was a week 2 change. You guys changed the amount of intel you get from search and destroy, right?
Yeah, we definitely changed it. I'm not sure if it was PTS2 or this week, but it's definitely changed from 5 to 10. So that would lessen the grind a bit more, so you can get to the actual contracts a bit more quickly.
And the contracts get a lot of rewards now. It's super cool.
Also. And also one good thing with actually search and destroy and high value targets is that we made a change last week with in the end was not a very good idea. We wanted to make weekly high value targets contract group content. A lot of people have been commenting on that, so we've reverted that. So that means that high value targets and high risk targets will scale to group size again, which means you can solo them, the weekly ones. Because we made a change, so only daily could be played with smaller groups, or only dailies would scale to group size, and weeklies would always be scaled for groups of 4.
Cool.
You guys didn't like it. We understood. We understand. We agree. So we reverted it. So forget about it. Now,
nice.
High value and high risk, they scale to group size, so you can play them solo. Banshee. So now it's been replaced with Why Not Rogue. Damage to rogue players is increased by 10%, but didn't change.
Yes.
And then no Dark Zone XP or currency is lost on death.
Yep.
So what that means is that when you're wearing this gear set, if you're in a Dark Zone, you're not rogue. If you die, you're not going to lose any currency or any Dark Zone XP. We think it can be interesting because Dark Zone is all about risk versus reward. And therefore now, if you're wearing this gear set, which of course is not mandatory for the Dark Zone, but if you're wearing it and you're not rogue, either that's going to help you farm, because if you die while farming, you're not going to have the consequences. Or also if you want to do rogue hunting, it's going to be also less risk for you because you're not losing as much if you actually don't manage to kill the rogue.
Yep.
So that's something we're experiencing, or we're like, yeah, we're just experimenting with. Let us know. Named weapons. So the named weapons are no longer locked to specific gear scores.
Exactly.
Yes. Nice. So, but we talked a little bit about this off the stream before.
Yeah.
I think now is a good time, since we're talking about it and we don't forget it later on. There's some changes to where you can find specific high-end weapons, right?
So, of course, it's like all the weapons are available at all gear score levels, but there are some limitations to that depending on the source where you get them from.
Okay.
Like vendors, we scale those with world tier. So everything that was on vendors, you can get at every level depending on what tier you are.
Okay.
Stuff that drops in open world will also just scale depending on the tier that you are. So a 33 or a 229 Caduceus is a thing now.
Yes.
But so is like a 182 Showstopper, for example.
Oh, okay.
So that used to be a 229 only.
Yeah.
The thing is that we tried to keep the sources intact when we introduced the world tiers.
Yeah.
But for example, challenge mode for main missions is locked to tier 2, right?
Sure.
So that means the Showstopper is still behind challenge mode. So that one won't be available in tier 1, which is why you can't get it as a 163. But from then on, you can get it at any gear score. So, but the swapping around of the sources has to do with the blueprints, because blueprints do not scale, right? Like any other blueprint in our game is like, this is the fixed gear score thing that you make.
Yeah.
So we, instead of like offering a lot of blueprints for those as well, we try to like just redistribute the weapons that affected. Okay,
because I think you talked about Tenebrae earlier,
yes,
right?
Yes, it should be Tenebrae, Valkyria, and Liberator.
Okay.
And so we didn't put in the patch notes what the new sources are for these named weapons. Okay. 2 of them are quite easy to find because they're on the Phoenix credit vendor. So you will see that as soon as you open his...
So the Tenebrae and...
No, the Valkyria and the Liberator.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And the Tenebrae is somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Somewhere else. So whoever finds it first,
gets a
let us
cookie.
know.
Yeah. Right.
Send us a screenshot or something. Tell us where you got it.
Yeah. So skills. So there was a lot of discussion also regarding skills about the approach with the diminishing return curve and how intense the diminishing return was. So we made some tweaks to the curve now based on your feedback as well. And we basically changed it so that we still want skills to be useful, even if you don't really spec in electronics. And that has always been the case because, we don't want you to completely disregard skills. But therefore, we want to reward players who invest in electronics heavily. We want to reward them more. So we changed the diminishing return curve to make it more interesting, basically, to invest in electronics, which means you're going to be able to go even further with your skills by investing in electronics. What that means, though, is that we had to do some tweaks with some of the skills to make sure that they don't scale like incredibly and you don't end up with very OP skills. So there's a bunch of rebalancing we did on skills based on that. I will not go through that. I invite you guys to have a look at the patch notes. It's a lot of small tweaks here and there. It's nothing drastic, but yeah, just have a look there. But know that, yes, now you're going to be rewarded more by investing heavily in electronics, which is going to be nice. We also looked at the skill haste issue. We put some safeguard there. Unfortunately, that means we have to put some caps on skill haste.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the only way to make sure that it doesn't get completely broken. Open world named NPCs, we changed the respawn cooldown or the respawn timer. It was at 24 hours, and we know that a lot of comments were made on that. We changed it to 4 hours. Quickly, guys, as for date, we're not going to give you a date in this state of the game. Just so we're clear with that. We don't have a date because we want to give you the PTS week 3, and we want to get your feedback. We think we're getting close to what we want to have, but we want to make sure that you guys agree with us before we confirm a date. So you're not going to get a date today, so no need to spam the chat with that. But yeah, so just to make it clear, underground chests especially, and also underground bosses and mission bosses, but the biggest contention point was the underground chest, will only have a chance for purple in normal difficulty tier 1.
Yeah.
Normal difficulty over tiers, it's going to be guaranteed high-end or gear set.
Yeah.
And hard difficulty and challenging difficulty tier 1 also guaranteed high-end and gear set.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about bosses, so the mission and incursion, so what we call the mid bosses, which are the 4 horsemen, what's their name again? Raptor and Domino in General Assembly. I don't know if there are others, but like the named bosses you get during a mission or during an incursion, but are not the end boss of this mission. We made a change last week where they had the chance to drop purple. That didn't go very well, so let's talk about it.
Nobody wants the purples. No.
Yeah.
I think like we don't consider these guys actual bosses, right? They're they're named guys, but they're not the end of mission bosses. So that's why we give them different loot, because for the guaranteed stuff that you get from an activity, we only take into account the bosses and the rewards, and the rest is bonus.
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't want to guarantee you high ends from these guys. So they had a chance for purple and a chance for high end, but it was a guaranteed drop.
Yeah,
sure.
But that's changed now, where we changed the guaranteed drop to crafting materials. So it's always something useful. And if you get the additional actual item drop, it will be a high end.
Nice.
So,
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Division Tech has been removed as a requirement from high-end and gear set blueprints.
Yeah. So
why? Why did you do that, Nikki?
Well, because we moved all these type of blueprint from Dark Zone to the blueprint vendor in the terminal. And we always had the rule that if you buy a Dark Zone blueprint, then Division Tech is required to make that thing. Now that is not actually a Dark Zone blueprint anymore, because you can buy it in the terminal.
Okay.
So that's why we removed all the Division Tech requirements from those blueprints.
Okay. Are there any Dark Zone specific blueprints now, or are they?
Throughout the leveling game, there are still blueprints that you can purchase there that have Division Tech requirements. Yeah.
Cool. But in the end game, you don't.
No, they're all moved to the blueprint vendor in the terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that means that
Good job.
Division Tech is kind of like, what's the use for Division Tech now?
So you can of course still use it as a conversion.
Yeah, I like that.
So you can turn it into whatever. So that's the main purpose right now. Yeah. And for the future, we're looking into how we can find other functionalities for it. Yeah.
What is this one? Fixed a bug where a whip weapon could be crafted MG5. Yes, REAP MG5.
MG5, you didn't see anything. Like there was never an MG5. It didn't exist, for all intents and purposes. It won't exist.
This is not the MG5 you're looking
exactly. It won't. It's not in week 3 of the PTS, correct?
It shouldn't be. No.
It shouldn't be. Right.
It's in the patch notes, so it should be removed.
All right. But people, I saw a lot of conversations like, "Oh, it's so OP. Why don't these guys balance the MG5?" The values on it were completely arbitrary, based on stuff that happened a long time ago. The MG5 was never ever intended to fit in the current context of the game. Don't freak out. MG5, not a thing. There's a little bit of confusion around sealed caches, right? You can now purchase them.
Yeah.
You have ones that you can buy at the DZ checkpoints?
There should be sealed caches in all currencies.
Okay.
So on the weapon and gear vendors for E-Credit, the Dark Zone guys, and Phoenix Credit. Yeah.
Okay. So I've seen the checkpoint ones. The Phoenix Credit ones. Is that from in the base of operations or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
yeah, in the terminal.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But so there's now a lot of things happening there. There's a little bit of a difference between the Dark Zone ones and the other ones.
I think the E-Credit and the Dark Zone ones are quite similar content-wise. You just pay for them in a different currency.
Okay.
And the Phoenix Credit ones are more specific.
Okay. In
Like,
what way?
as in, you can buy one that actually says weapons and
okay.
gear. So you can, like, it's less random. So you can pick what pool to roll from, basically, if you buy one of those.
For how weighting works in incursions now, because you can now get any gear set from any incursion, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
But you can also get any gear set from any random guy now.
That's true.
So,
but, so I know people in regards to this have said, well, it forces me. It's going to have less chance for me to find what I'm looking for. The opposite's true, right? Like mathematically, you should be able to target the drops you want in a more efficient way.
Yeah, and you should actually be able to target gear sets that were previously in Underground DLC.
Okay, so if you don't own the Underground DLC, you can now get that content?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. Like the weighting before was like the gear sets that released in one of our updates were mostly available in the Incursion that released in the same update.
Okay.
And of course with Underground, with that being paid for, and Dragon's Nest being paid for, and Underground, the game mode, being paid for, that means that those gear sets were there. So what we changed here in general is that all gear sets are in like all those common drops from regular enemies, but we still wanted to give you a way to target certain things. So what we tried now is to actually like tie, like you can see in this image, like tie certain slots of gear set to a certain incursion.
Sorry, a quick disclaimer. Yes, armor is actually chest piece. I don't know why.
Yeah, that should be a vest.
Yeah,
sure.
Chest armor. Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, Dragon's Nest is still a paid-for incursion, but you only need 4 out of 6 pieces to make a gear set work.
Yeah.
So, like even people that don't own Dragon's Nest can farm for these sets.
Yeah, and technically they could find backpack and knee pads elsewhere in the world.
Yeah,
As a random
definitely.
drop down,
Yeah. They're not locked to this. It's more like if you play this, then the rewards from this incursion will tailor towards this, and you can actually preview this when you look at the rewards on the incursion icon in the world map.
Okay, so it'll tell you on the map.
Yeah.
PTS, actually, what's going to happen on the PTS? Because I've seen a lot of people asking, does that mean what's going to happen to the MG5 aircraft on the PTS or whatever? We're actually resetting the database on the PTS.
Yes.
So what that means is that we're re-importing the live game database today to the PTS. So all the changes you made during week 2, they're all gone. You're starting fresh again with your character from live in week 3. The reason being that we made changes to drops, we made changes to everything, to progression and everything. We want to start over again from the live environment because, again, week 3 it should be the experience you go through when we deploy the update on 1.4.
Thanks very much.
See you guys.
Bye.